Welcome to Bedtime Biology, where science slows down and nature whispers you to sleep. Take time to find a comfortable position as you let the outside world fade away. Let it recede as you bring your attention to the present moment. Settle in, relax, and let's begin. Close your eyes for a moment and let everything else fall away. The room you're in, the weight of the day behind you, all of it can wait. Picture instead the last hour of daylight over a wide, open savanna. The sun has dropped low enough that it no longer burns, only glows, the color of warm honey poured across the grass. Long shadows stretch out from every tree and termite mound, reaching further and further as the light continues to fall. Somewhere in the distance, a hornbill calls once and goes quiet. A breath of wind moves through the grass and then settles. And beneath a low, wide acacia tree, in a pool of shade that has been deepening for the last half hour, something is beginning to wake up. We're going to spend the next few hours together in the world of one of the quietest, most graceful animals on this earth. Not to study it from a distance, not to catalog it the way a textbook might, but simply to walk alongside it, in our minds, as this one long night unfolds. There is no test at the end of this. No need to remember every detail. Just a story, told slowly, about an animal that has always preferred to live at the edge of what we can see. There is no rush here at all. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing find its own slow rhythm. The leopard we're about to meet has nowhere urgent to be either, not for many hours yet, and neither do you. Wherever you happen to be listening to this, whatever kind of day led you here, let this next stretch of time belong entirely to something slower. There is nothing to solve tonight, nothing to plan, nothing waiting on the other side of this story that needs your attention before it's ready. Just a long, unhurried walk alongside a patient, quiet animal, through one complete turn of the night. Before we go any further, it might help to simply picture the animal itself clearly, the way you might sketch a familiar face from memory. A body built low and long, somewhere between a large dog and a small pony in overall mass, depending on where in the world it happens to live. Powerful shoulders, a deep chest, a tail nearly as long as its own body, used constantly for balance along branches and narrow ledges alike. Every part of it, when you look closely, seems built around the same two ideas: strength and the ability to vanish. The leopard's scientific name is Panthera pardus, and of every large cat alive today, it is by far the most widely spread across the world. Where tigers keep mostly to Asia, and jaguars to the forests and wetlands of the Americas, the leopard has quietly made a home for itself almost everywhere else. Across the dry grasslands and thick forests of sub-Saharan Africa, through remote, rocky pockets of the Middle East that few travelers ever see, deep into Asia, from the humid, tiger-striped jungles of India to the cold, snow-dusted forests along the Russian Far East. Few large predators anywhere have learned to belong in so many different worlds at once, adjusting themselves, quietly and patiently, to whatever the land demands of them. As the light continues to fall, and the gold slowly deepens into a soft amber, and then into blue, watch how the leopard's eyes seem to hold on to the last of the sun far longer than anything around it. This is not some trick of the fading light. It's simple biology, built carefully over countless generations. A leopard's eyes are roughly 7 times more sensitive to low light than our own eyes are. What looks to us like the deepening edge of dusk, almost too dim to make anything out clearly, is to the leopard still bright enough to move through with total confidence, every shape and shadow still perfectly legible. The coming night, in other words, is not something the leopard needs to brace itself against. The night is simply home. It has always been home. Long after we would have long since reached for a light of our own, the leopard will still be moving with total ease. Think, for a moment, about how different this experience of night actually is for the leopard compared to almost anything we ourselves have ever known. For us, darkness tends to mean uncertainty, a narrowing of the senses, a reliance on memory and imagination to fill in whatever the eyes can no longer confirm. For the leopard, darkness means something closer to the opposite, a widening of possibility, a doubling of confidence, a world that becomes, if anything, slightly easier to read than the glare and business of full daylight. Every sound carries a little further. Every scent lingers a little longer in the cool, still air. The whole landscape seems to settle into a kind of hush that suits this particular hunter perfectly. Look closer now, if you can, at the pattern spread across its coat. Small clusters of dark rings, packed close together, each one slightly irregular, slightly different from its neighbor. We call these rosettes. And here is something worth sitting with for a moment. No two leopards anywhere on this earth share exactly the same arrangement of them. Each pattern is as individual, as unrepeatable, as a human fingerprint pressed into ink. If you were lucky enough, somehow, to cross paths with this exact same leopard again, years from now, in some entirely different season of its life, you could still recognize it, simply by the pattern written across its shoulder. Look even closer, and you'll notice the pattern isn't uniform across the whole body either. Along the back and flanks, the rosettes cluster close and complex. Down along the legs and across the face, they simplify into smaller, more solid spots, almost like a different dialect of the same visual language. Even the belly carries its own pale, mostly unmarked canvas, lighter than the rest of the coat, a small practical detail that helps the animal blend into the undersides of branches and rocky overhangs whenever it happens to be looking upward from below. Some leopards, especially in the deep, wet, tangled forests of Southeast Asia, are born almost entirely black from head to tail. We call them black panthers, though they remain, in every meaningful sense, still leopards underneath that darker coat. And if the light happens to fall on their fur just right, early in the morning, perhaps, or late in a soft afternoon, you can sometimes still make out the faint ghost of those same rosettes, hidden just beneath the surface like a watermark pressed into old paper. Even in near total shadow, the pattern is still there. Nothing about a leopard, it turns out, is ever fully hidden. Only disguised, waiting for the right light to reveal it again. Let your breathing slow a little further now. In, slowly, and out, slowly, letting each breath last just a moment longer than the one before it. The leopard we're following tonight is alone, and that is not the least bit unusual for a creature like this. In fact, it's simply the leopard's natural way of moving through the world. Unlike lions, who live and hunt together in tightly bonded prides, leopards spend nearly the entirety of their lives in solitude. They come together only rarely and only briefly, to mate, or in the case of a mother, to raise cubs still too young to survive without her. Beyond those brief, necessary moments, each leopard keeps almost entirely to itself, moving quietly through its own stretch of territory beneath the same stars, night after night, for years at a time. There is a particular kind of peace hidden inside that solitude, if you sit with the idea for a while. A whole life, lived fully and completely, without ever needing the company of others to feel whole. Not loneliness, exactly. Something closer to self-sufficiency, carried so naturally that it barely registers as anything remarkable at all to the leopard itself. Now imagine, for a moment, that this same leopard has just finished a hunt, perhaps a small antelope caught unaware in the last hour before dark. Rather than feed where the animal fell, out in the open, where hyenas or a passing lion might easily steal the meal away, the leopard does something almost unbelievable for an animal of its size. It clamps its jaws firmly around the carcass and begins to climb straight up the trunk of the nearest sturdy tree, hauling prey that can weigh up to 3 times its own body weight entirely off the ground. Picture the sheer, coiled strength that requires. A body built almost entirely of dense, efficient muscle, dragging its own dinner higher and higher into the safety of the branches, until finally, settled comfortably in a fork high above the ground, it can feed at its own unhurried pace, undisturbed, the carcass swaying gently overhead with every small movement of the wind. And when the moment calls for speed instead of raw strength, the leopard has that in reserve too. Across short distances, it can reach speeds close to 60 kilometers an hour, nearly 36 miles an hour, a sudden blur of gold and black cutting low and fast across open grass. This is not an animal built for long, sustained chases, the way a wolf might run down tired prey over miles of open country. The leopard is built instead for the single, perfect moment, the short, explosive burst that closes the gap before its prey even fully understands what's happening. Here is something that might genuinely surprise you, especially if your picture of a leopard has always been tied to dry grassland and dusty riverbeds. Despite that reputation, the leopard is also a confident, entirely capable swimmer. Rivers and wide streams that might stop many other predators in their tracks are, to to this animal, simply another stretch of territory to be crossed without hesitation. It moves through water much the same way it moves through everything else in its world, calmly, efficiently, and completely in command of the situation. Watch, if you can picture it, the way it enters the water without any of the hesitation you might expect from a cat. No pause at the bank. No shaking of a single paw. It simply steps in and begins to move, head held level above the surface, tail trailing behind like a rudder, crossing a slow-moving channel exactly as unhurriedly as it crosses open ground. On the far bank, it will pause only briefly, giving its coat one good, thorough shake, before continuing on exactly where it left off, as though the river had barely interrupted its evening at all. As true darkness finally settles in around us now, notice the whiskers fanned out along the sides of its face, long, pale, faintly luminous in whatever moonlight manages to filter down through the branches. These are not simple decoration. Each individual whisker functions as an extraordinarily fine sensor, tuned to detect even the smallest shift in the air around it, the exact width of a gap between two branches, the faint disturbance of something moving nearby in absolute blackness. In a world with almost no visible light left at all, the leopard can still read its surroundings with remarkable precision, using its face alone as a kind of second set of eyes. Time has passed now since we first found this leopard, waking quietly beneath its tree as the sun went down. And in all that time, it has not hunted. It has not called out. It has done little more than rise, stretch, and begin a slow, deliberate walk along a game trail worn smooth by its own paws, retraced now for perhaps the 1000th time. Let's stay with it a little longer and see where the night takes it next. The night has fully settled in now. Somewhere far off, an owl calls once into the darkness, and then falls entirely silent again, as if even the owl understands that something is about to happen. The leopard has stopped walking. Its ears have tilted forward, fully alert. Every muscle along its body has gone perfectly, deliberately still. This is the leopard's true art, if you had to name just one thing. Not the chase itself, but the approach that comes before it. A leopard hunts primarily through patience, more than almost anything else in its arsenal. It will lower its body slowly until its belly nearly brushes against the earth, and begin closing the distance between itself and whatever it has chosen as prey, one slow, deliberate step at a time. Sometimes it will spend 20 minutes or more crossing a gap of only a few meters, moving so gradually that even careful observers occasionally lose track of whether it's moving at all. Only at the very last possible moment, once it has drawn close enough to nearly reach out and touch its target, does it finally explode forward in one sudden, committed burst. There is no wasted motion anywhere in that sequence. No unnecessary risk taken before it's absolutely required. Simply stillness, held for as long as it takes, and then, for half a second, total and complete commitment. If you've ever watched a house cat stalk something in a garden, a bird, a moving leaf, a piece of string dragged slowly across the floor, you've already seen a smaller, gentler version of exactly the same behavior. The crouch. The slow, deliberate placement of each paw. The sudden stillness the instant the target so much as glances up. It's the same basic pattern, refined over millions of years, simply scaled up here to something considerably larger, and considerably more consequential for whatever happens to be on the receiving end of it. What allows the leopard to succeed across so many wildly different landscapes, from dense rainforest to open desert to freezing mountain slopes, isn't raw power alone. It's flexibility, carried all the way down into what it's willing to eat. Where a lion depends heavily on cooperative hunting with others of its pride, and a cheetah depends almost entirely on raw, explosive speed, the leopard survives instead by being willing to eat almost anything the landscape offers it. Researchers studying leopards across their entire range have documented more than 90 separate species appearing in their diet, everything from dung beetles and small rodents barely larger than the palm of your hand, all the way up to antelope many times the leopard's own size. A leopard rarely goes hungry for long, because a leopard rarely turns down a meal simply because it seems unusual, or too small, or too strange to bother with. That same flexibility shows up in how it chooses its resting places too. A leopard might spend one day tucked into the fork of a tree, the next inside a shaded rock crevice, and the one after that hidden within a dense thicket of low scrub, never settling into any single fixed den the way some other predators might. Its whole territory functions less like a single home and more like a wide, familiar neighborhood, dozens of quiet resting spots scattered across it, each one chosen fresh depending on the weather, the season, or simply where the previous night's hunt happened to end. Feel, for a moment, the quiet strength held in those paws as they move silently across the ground. Each one carries curved, fully retractable claws, kept carefully sheathed and protected during ordinary walking, drawn out only when genuinely needed, for climbing, for gripping prey twice its own weight halfway up a tree trunk, for anchoring itself firmly against a sudden struggle. Claws that stay razor sharp across an entire lifetime, simply by remaining hidden away until the precise moment they are called upon. Compare that, for a moment, to an animal like a dog, whose claws remain exposed at all times, gradually worn down through ordinary walking and running across hard ground. The leopard's retractable design solves that problem entirely, protecting the sharpest, most valuable part of each claw until the exact instant it's genuinely needed, then withdrawing it again immediately afterward, safely tucked away, ready for the next time it matters. Let those same rosettes come to mind again now, the ones we first noticed in the last golden light before sunset. In full daylight, dappled and broken by shifting leaves and scattered branches overhead, that exact same pattern transforms into something else entirely, a form of camouflage so complete that a leopard resting quietly in a tree, sometimes only a few meters from an observer, can go entirely unnoticed for hours. The very same marking that makes every individual leopard unique also makes it, whenever it chooses, remarkably close to invisible. Now let your mind drift gently somewhere else entirely, somewhere hidden and quiet. A shallow den tucked beneath a fallen log, perhaps, or nestled deep inside a tangle of loose rock. Here, some weeks earlier, this same leopard, or one very like her, gave birth. Leopard cubs arrive into the world blind, completely helpless, weighing barely half a kilogram to a full kilogram, small enough to rest gently in two cupped hands. For the first 6 to 8 weeks of life, they will not leave that den at all. They simply wait there in the dark, nursing quietly, while their mother comes and goes on her own hunts, always careful, always watchful, always returning. There is something deeply, quietly peaceful in imagining that particular kind of stillness. New life, curled safely away in the dark, asking nothing at all of the wider world yet, beyond warmth and milk and the slow, unhurried passage of time. In those very first days, a cub's world extends no further than the warmth of its mother's body and the sound of her steady breathing beside it. Its eyes remain sealed shut, its legs still too weak to properly carry its own small weight. It knows nothing yet of grass, or trees, or the wide horizon its mother crosses every night in search of food. All it knows, in those earliest hours, is comfort and hunger, and the answering comfort that follows soon after. Everything else, the whole enormous, varied world we've been exploring together tonight, will come to it slowly, one small lesson at a time, in the weeks and months still ahead. Take a slow breath in, and let it out completely, all the way to the bottom of your lungs. Out here, beneath the open night sky, leopards rarely speak to one another with sound. But when they do choose to, that call carries a long way across open country, a low, rasping, almost sawing tone, not unlike the sound of a hand saw dragged slowly and repeatedly through soft wood. That particular call, together with scent left carefully along trails and tree trunks, is how a leopard announces its territory to any other leopard that might happen to pass through later. No confrontation required. No unnecessary risk taken. Simply a quiet message, left behind in the dark, for whoever might come along later and understand it. And this, perhaps, sits close to the very heart of the leopard's whole story. Its extraordinary willingness to make a life almost anywhere at all. Leopards have been found deep within humid tropical rainforest, across sun-scorched, arid desert where water is scarce for miles in every direction, and high up in cold mountain air, with confirmed sightings recorded above 5,000 meters on the upper slopes of Kilimanjaro itself. Very few large predators on this entire planet can claim to feel equally at home in so many entirely different worlds, one after another. Think about what that really requires, biologically speaking. A body that can regulate its own temperature effectively whether the surrounding air is bitterly cold or stiflingly hot. A digestive system flexible enough to process whatever prey happens to be locally available, rather than depending on one narrow, specialized diet. A coat that can grow thicker in a cold climate and remain serviceable in a hot one, all without the animal itself ever needing to consciously decide anything at all. Evolution simply keeps selecting, generation after generation, for whichever small variations happen to survive best in each particular place, and over enough time, an entire species ends up capable of thriving in conditions that might once have seemed impossibly far apart. But for all of that remarkable adaptability, the leopard story is not without its own quiet shadows. Across much of its historical range, habitat has slowly been lost to farmland, to roads, to expanding towns and villages, and leopard populations have, as a result, gradually declined enough that the species as a whole is now listed as vulnerable by international conservation authorities. The same quiet, solitary nature that has always defined this animal also means its struggles often unfold almost entirely unseen, far from human eyes, in exactly the same kind of silence the leopard has always seemed to prefer. More time has passed with us here in the dark, beside this same patient leopard. It has not hunted yet tonight. It has only walked and watched and waited, exactly the way it has done on countless nights before this one. There is no need at all to hurry it along. Let's simply stay here a little longer, in this quiet, and see what the rest of the night still has to show us. Let the savannah fade for a while now, the way a scene in a favorite film slowly dissolves into the next, colors softening and blurring at the edges before something new resolves into focus. Because the leopard story doesn't end in the grasslands of Africa. It travels. It has always traveled. East now, across wide deserts and slow, winding river valleys, past scattered cities and quiet farmland, until at last the land itself begins to rise beneath our feet. The air grows thinner with every passing mile. The grass gradually gives way to bare rock and patches of old, stubborn ice. And here, high in the folded peaks of the Himalayas and across the wild, windswept ranges of Central Asia, we meet another leopard entirely, one shaped by an almost completely different set of pressures. The snow leopard. It shares a name with the cat we've been quietly following tonight, and something of its same unhurried spirit too. But it belongs to its own distinct and ancient lineage, so thoroughly adapted to cold and altitude over countless generations that some of its closest living relatives, genetically speaking, aren't other leopards at all. They're tigers, thousands of kilometers away, in the warm lowland forests of Asia. Consider, for a moment, just how dramatic that shift in elevation really is. At sea level, where much of our story tonight has already unfolded, the air carries plenty of oxygen with every breath, enough to fuel a full sprint across open grass without much strain at all. Climb high enough into the mountains the snow leopard calls home, though, and that same breath delivers only a fraction as much, thin and sharp against the lungs, demanding far more effort simply to walk, let alone hunt. And yet the snow leopard moves through that same thin air with total ease, its whole body quietly adapted, over countless generations, to a world most mammals could never comfortably survive in at all. Snow leopards make their home at elevations that would be lethal to almost any other large predator, regularly above 3,000 meters, sometimes well past 5,000, where the air itself feels sharp against the lungs and the nights turn bitterly, unforgivingly cold. To survive there at all, its entire body has quietly reshaped itself over time. Its fur can grow up to 5 centimeters deep across the back and shoulders, a coat thick enough to hold warmth close to the skin even as fierce wind howls across exposed, open rock. Its paws, meanwhile, are unusually wide and heavily furred underneath, spreading the animal's full weight across snow much the way a well-designed snowshoe would, letting it move confidently across drifts that would swallow a narrower, smaller foot entirely. Then there is the tail. Long, thick, remarkably heavy, nearly as long as the snow leopard's entire body from nose to haunch, trailing gracefully behind it like a soft gray rope as it picks its way along a narrow ridge line high above a valley floor. That tail isn't only useful for balance on icy, uncertain footing, though it performs that role beautifully. At rest, curled snugly into the shelter of some rock crevice for the night, the snow leopard will wrap that very same tail around its own body and face, almost like a built-in scarf against the deep, biting cold. Few other cats anywhere devote quite so much of their own body length to a single purpose this way. Proportionally, the snow leopard's tail is longer relative to its body than almost any other cat's, a clear sign of just how central balance becomes to an animal that spends its entire life navigating steep, unstable, often icy terrain, where a single misjudged step could mean a serious fall rather than a minor stumble. Listen closely for its voice, and you'll notice something quietly missing compared to the great cats we've already met. Unlike lions or tigers, the snow leopard cannot roar at all. The particular bone structure in its throat never fully hardens the way it does in other big cats, and so instead of that deep, rolling roar we might associate with a lion at dusk, the snow leopard produces something softer, and in its own way, more intimate. A kind of chuff, almost a huffed exhale of breath, along with mews and low growls closer to what you might expect from a far smaller, more modest cat. Its coat carries its own quiet story too. Pale gray, almost smoky in certain light, scattered generously with dark rosettes considerably larger and softer edged than those we noticed on the common leopard earlier tonight. Against broken rock, scree, and drifting snow, that coat becomes something close to perfect camouflage, so effective, in fact, that researchers who have devoted entire careers to studying snow leopards in the wild may go years at a stretch between confirmed, direct sightings. It's earned itself a fitting nickname among the mountain communities who share this same high, remote landscape, the ghost of the mountain. That nickname has taken on a life of its own well beyond the mountain communities who first coined it, appearing since in documentaries, books, and popular culture more broadly, a small sign of just how deeply this particular animal's elusiveness has captured imagination far beyond the high valleys it actually calls home. When it does finally hunt, the snow leopard targets animals every bit as suited to this harsh, unforgiving terrain as it is. Blue sheep, known locally as barrel, picking their way along steep slopes. Wild mountain goats called ibex, balanced impossibly on narrow outcrops. Smaller prey too, like marmots, caught unaware near the mouths of their own burrows. It moves with much the same patient stalk and pounce approach we saw earlier on the savanna, only now carried out across terrain almost unimaginably steeper, colder, and less forgiving of any single misstep. Local communities scattered across these mountains, herders who have shared this same high country with the snow leopard for countless generations, have long understood something modern researchers only confirmed more recently, that a single snow leopard's hunting range can stretch across genuinely enormous stretches of terrain, following the seasonal movement of wild prey up and down a mountainside as the weather itself shifts through the year. In the depths of winter, when snow drives prey animals down into lower, more sheltered valleys, the snow leopard follows patiently behind them, only to climb back up toward the high passes again once warmer weather returns and its prey scatters upward once more in search of fresh grazing. And when the final moment to strike finally arrives, the snow leopard's own body reveals one more remarkable secret. Those powerful hind legs, shaped over generations for a life spent almost entirely on cliffs and steep, broken slopes, allow it to leap distances of up to 15 meters in a single, fluid bound, clearing an entire chasm, or closing the very last impossible gap toward waiting prey, in one silent, graceful arc through thin, cold mountain air. To put that number in some kind of perspective, 15 meters is roughly the length of 3 ordinary cars parked end to end, covered in a single leap by an animal that, at rest, might weigh no more than an adult human. Nothing about that distance is casual or incidental. It represents the accumulated result of an entire skeleton and musculature quietly optimized, over an immense stretch of evolutionary time, around exactly this one dramatic, decisive movement. Local herding communities have lived alongside this animal for so many generations that entire systems of folklore and practical knowledge have grown up around it. Stories passed down about which valleys a snow leopard is likely to favor in a hard winter, which ridgelines offer the best vantage for spotting one at dawn, and which signs, a scrape mark on a boulder, a particular scent left at a trail junction, mean a territory has recently changed hands between one animal and another. Much of what modern researchers have since confirmed with collars and camera traps, these communities had already quietly understood for centuries, simply through the accumulated attention of living so closely alongside the same mountains. Rest here a while longer, high above the tree line, wrapped in whatever image feels most vivid to you. A pale shape, moving unhurried along a distant ridge at dusk, its breath rising in soft white clouds against the cold, utterly and completely at home in a world that very few living things could ever hope to survive in at all. Now let the mountains fall gradually away behind us, and let the air around us grow warm and thick again, heavy with moisture, alive with the constant hum of insects and the steady drip of water from broad, overlapping leaves. We're descending now, down into the rainforests of Southeast Asia, through Borneo, through Sumatra, across the forested hills of Indochina, home to yet a third cat that carries the leopard's familiar name, though it too belongs to its own entirely separate branch of the wider cat family, the clouded leopard. It takes its name directly from the pattern spread across its coat, not the tight, compact rosettes we noticed on its African namesake, but instead broad, irregular blotches edged in darker fur, said by generations of observers to resemble slow-drifting clouds set against a much paler background. It's a considerably smaller cat than any we've followed so far tonight, and yet, pound for pound, remarkably formidable in its own right. The clouded leopard carries the largest canine teeth relative to its own skull size of any living cat on Earth, a set of teeth so proportionally large that researchers have, at times, drawn direct comparisons to the long-extinct saber-toothed cats of the last ice age. That comparison isn't purely poetic either. Some researchers have suggested the clouded leopard's unusually large canines and wide gape represent a kind of living echo of hunting strategies once used by those ancient, long-vanished predators, adapted here on a much smaller scale for prey found in a dense, three-dimensional forest environment rather than the open plains those ancient cats once roamed. It's a small, striking reminder that evolution doesn't always move in one direction only, and that echoes of very old strategies can sometimes resurface, reshaped, in entirely different branches of the same family tree. Where the common leopard climbs mainly to protect a hard-won kill from scavengers, and the snow leopard rarely bothers climbing at all, the clouded leopard has made the entire forest canopy essentially its whole world. Its ankle joints are able to rotate nearly a full half circle, a degree of flexibility almost unheard of anywhere else among cats, allowing it to climb straight down a tree trunk headfirst with total confidence, or hang comfortably from a single branch by its back feet alone, as easily and calmly as it might otherwise walk across solid, level ground. There are, in fact, two entirely separate species quietly hiding behind that one shared common name. The mainland clouded leopard, ranging from the Himalayan foothills all the way through Southeast Asia and into parts of southern China. And the sunder-clouded leopard, found only on the islands of Borneo and Sumatra, distinct enough in both its genetics and its markings that researchers only formally recognized the two as separate species in the early 2000s, after generations of assuming they were simply one and the same. That reclassification mattered for more than just paperwork. Once researchers understood these were genuinely separate species, each with its own comparatively small and isolated population, conservation priorities shifted accordingly, treating the island populations as their own distinct concern rather than folding them quietly into a single, larger mainland number. It's a useful reminder that the categories we use to describe the natural world aren't fixed forever. They update, carefully and deliberately, whenever new evidence gives us reason to look again. So much of the clouded leopard's entire life plays out somewhere above the forest floor. It rests along wide, sturdy branches through the hottest hours of the day, moves easily between neighboring trees in a way that makes the ground below feel almost entirely optional, and will even, on occasion, mate high up in the canopy, far above the world that most other forest animals move through down below. Because so much of its life unfolds hidden within thick, tangled forest canopy, the clouded leopard remains one of the least understood of all the world's great cats, rarely captured on film, rarely observed directly even by researchers who have spent years working in the forests it calls home. Much of what's known about its behavior in the wild has been pieced together slowly, from footprints left in soft mud, from claw marks scored into bark, from the occasional, precious flash of a camera trap triggered by movement in the middle of the night. It's a reminder that even now, in an age of satellites and genetic sequencing, entire animals can still move through the world largely unseen, their private lives known to us only in fragments. Back in the mountains we left only a little while ago, the snow leopard is, in its own quiet way, living out a story remarkably similar to the one we began this whole night beside. Solitary. Fiercely territorial. A mother hiding her own newborn cubs away, usually 2 or 3 of them, typically born in the earliest weeks of summer, just as blind and just as utterly helpless as any other leopard cub anywhere else on this earth. A snow leopard's territory, though, must stretch far wider than a common leopard's ever needs to, sometimes covering more than 1,000 square kilometers, simply because prey at that altitude is so much scarcer, so thinly scattered across such difficult, unforgiving land. And perhaps most remarkable of all, fewer than an estimated 6,000 snow leopards remain scattered across the entire wild high country of Asia today, a total population smaller than many single ordinary cities, quietly holding on across some of the harshest, and yet most strikingly beautiful terrain anywhere on the planet. It's worth pausing here for a moment, just to notice something quietly extraordinary running beneath everything we've covered tonight. 3 entirely different cats, drawn from 3 very different corners of the world. The open grassland. The high, freezing mountains. The warm, dripping rainforest canopy. Each one carrying rosettes, or cloud-like markings, spread across its coat. Each one shaped by such completely different pressures, such different climates, such different daily lives. And yet, again and again, across all that separation, evolution seems to keep arriving at the very same quiet answer. A coat broken carefully into patches of shadow and light, perfectly suited to disappearing into whatever particular world each cat happens to call home. Different mountains, different forests, different centuries of slow, patient change. Scientists have a name for this kind of pattern, when unrelated species arrive independently at strikingly similar solutions to the same underlying problem. They call it convergent evolution, and the natural world is quietly full of examples of it, wings appearing separately in insects, birds, and bats, or sleek, streamlined bodies appearing independently in dolphins and sharks, 2 creatures separated by an entire branch of the tree of life. The broken, dappled coat we keep returning to tonight, appearing again and again across cats that split apart from one another millions of years ago, is simply one more quiet example of the same deep principle. When the problem is staying hidden in a world of shifting light and shadow, it seems there are only so many good answers available, and evolution, patiently, tends to find them, one lineage at a time. And still, somehow, the very same soft, spotted silence, settling gently wherever it finally comes to rest. Let the rainforest canopy of Asia fade quietly behind us now, and let this story cross an entire ocean, the way a long-held breath finally, slowly, releases. Because on the far side of the world, in the wetlands and forests of Central and South America, there is a cat so often mistaken for the one we began this journey with that even careful, experienced observers sometimes need a second, closer look before they're entirely certain. Broad, powerful shoulders. A low-slung, muscular body built for strength rather than speed. A coat covered in dark rosettes set against tawny, sun-warmed gold. The jaguar. Its very name is thought to descend from an old word in the Tupi Guarani languages of South America, roughly meaning something close to he who kills with one leap, a description early observers offered long before any formal study of the animal existed, and one that modern biology has done little to contradict. It is the only big cat native to the Americas, historically ranging from the dry, scrubby borderlands of the southwestern United States, down through Mexico, through the dense forests of Central America, and deep into the heart of South America, following the great rivers through the Amazon basin and out across the wide, seasonal floodplains of the Pantanal. And though its rosettes look, at a passing glance, almost identical to a leopard's own markings, there is a small, elegant difference hidden within them, one worth knowing. A jaguar's rosettes usually contain one or more small dark spots at their very center, a subtle detail the common leopard's own markings simply never share. The resemblance ends fairly quickly, though, once you understand exactly what the jaguar's body was built to do. Of every big cat currently alive on Earth, the jaguar carries the single strongest bite, relative to its size, of them all, a jaw powerful enough to pierce straight through a turtle's shell, crack the armored hide of a caiman lying half submerged in a river, or crush directly through the skull of its prey in one single, decisive motion. Where a leopard, or a lion, typically kills by suffocating prey through a prolonged bite to the throat, the jaguar instead often does something far more immediate and direct, delivering one committed bite straight through bone, ending things almost instantly. Researchers studying skull structure across the great cats have found the jaguar's own skull noticeably broader and more heavily reinforced than a leopard's of comparable body length, extra bone and muscle attachment built specifically to support that single, devastating bite. It's a clear example of a body shaped closely around one particular hunting strategy, in much the same way the snow leopard's wide, furred paws are shaped around the demands of deep snow, or the clouded leopard's rotating ankles are shaped around a life spent almost entirely above the forest floor. That same raw strength comes paired with an unusual, almost surprising comfort in the water. Far more than most cats, the jaguar seems genuinely at ease swimming, wading, and even hunting beneath the surface, taking fish, turtles, and caimans from rivers with roughly the same casual confidence it shows stalking prey across dry land. Picture it moving silently through shallow, sun-dappled water, completely unbothered by the world it's stepping into, as if water and land were never really two separate things to begin with. In the flooded forests of the Pantanal especially, this comfort with water becomes central to how the jaguar actually survives. For several months of every year, huge stretches of that landscape disappear beneath rising floodwater, and a jaguar that couldn't swim confidently would find its entire hunting ground effectively cut in half. Instead, it simply adjusts, wading through shallows, swimming longer stretches when needed, hauling itself up onto half-submerged logs to rest between hunts, treating the whole flooded world as just another version of solid ground. There is history laid into this particular cat too, far older than any written record we still have access to. To the Maya, and to the Aztec, the jaguar was never simply an animal to be admired cautiously from a safe distance. It was sacred, woven deeply into ideas of night, of the underworld, and of the sun's long nightly passage beneath the earth before rising again each following morning. Its image was carved carefully into temple walls, worn proudly by rulers as a mark of status, woven inseparably into the very idea of earthly power itself, generation after generation. Entire orders of warriors took their name and their symbolism directly from this animal, and their reasoning wasn't hard to understand once you consider the jaguar's own quiet habits. Here was a hunter that moved mostly unseen, that struck with total decisiveness only once it had chosen its moment, and that seemed just as at home slipping through flooded wetland as it did prowling dry upland forest. To ancient eyes watching it move through dense jungle at dusk, spotted and golden one instant, gone entirely into shadow the next, it must have seemed less like an ordinary animal and more like something borrowed briefly from another world entirely, and then returned just as quietly as it arrived. Even today, across parts of its range, older stories about the jaguar persist quietly alongside modern field biology, farmers and forest communities describing near encounters passed down across generations, encounters that blend easily, without any real contradiction, into the same careful population surveys and camera trap studies conservationists rely on now. Two very different ways of knowing the same animal, somehow managing to sit comfortably side by side. Today, much like the leopard we began this whole night beside, and the snow leopard resting somewhere high in its mountains right now, the jaguar faces a quieter, distinctly more modern threat. Forests broken apart piece by new roads and expanding farmland, its once continuous range fractured slowly into smaller and smaller isolated pieces. Conservationists working across more than a dozen different countries have begun collaborating on something called a jaguar corridor, an ambitious, deeply patient effort to reconnect the forests and rivers a jaguar might once have wandered through freely, stretching from Mexico all the way down to Argentina, one protected stretch of land at a time. This kind of large-scale corridor thinking has become increasingly common across big cat conservation more broadly. The same basic logic applied to tigers moving between forest fragments in India, and to the mountain passes that might one day reconnect isolated snow leopard populations separated by decades of expanding human settlement. The underlying idea is a simple one. A single protected reserve, however well managed, can only support so many individuals before genetic diversity begins to suffer. Connect enough of those reserves together, even loosely, and an entire fragmented population can begin behaving, genetically speaking, much more like one large, healthy one. Rest for a moment with that particular image. An unbroken green thread, stretching the entire length of two continents, being slowly, carefully stitched back together, one quiet decision, one protected river bend at a time. Let's return now, gently, to the leopard itself. The true leopard, Panthera pardus, and notice something we haven't yet had the chance to properly explore together. Because the leopard we followed at the very beginning of this journey, moving unhurried through the golden grass of an African savanna, is only one face among several. Scientists recognize a number of distinct subspecies of leopard, each one shaped carefully by the particular corner of the world it happens to call home, each carrying that same quiet, solitary nature we started with tonight, only wrapped in a slightly different coat, suited to a slightly different life. Travel north and east now, away from the African grasslands, all the way to the cold birch forests along the shad border of Russia and China, and you'll find the Amur leopard, perhaps the single most striking example of just how far this one adaptable species is willing to stretch itself in order to survive. Its coat grows longer and considerably thicker than any other leopard's, up to 7 centimeters deep across the back during the harshest part of winter, pale and faintly golden against fresh snow. It is also, heartbreakingly, one of the rarest cats currently alive on the entire planet. At its lowest recorded point, back in the early 2000s, fewer than 30 individual or more leopards were believed to survive anywhere in the wild. Slow, careful, patient conservation work has helped that number climb gradually since then, though it still likely remains somewhere close to 100 individuals, scattered thinly across one small, frozen corner of forest. Travel instead toward the dry mountains and rocky, sun-baked valleys of the Arabian Peninsula, and the leopard reshapes itself once again into something new. The Arabian leopard stands as the smallest of all recognized subspecies, built lean, compact, and efficient for a landscape defined by relentless heat, scarce water, and thin, scattered desert vegetation. It, too, is critically endangered, with some careful estimates suggesting as few as 200 individuals remain scattered across the wild, remote corners of Yemen, Oman, and Saudi Arabia, holding on in some of the most demanding terrain any leopard subspecies has ever had to survive in. Surviving in that kind of heat requires its own quiet set of adaptations, distinct from anything the snow leopard or the common savanna leopard would ever need. Water becomes the limiting factor, far more than food, and an Arabian leopard will often travel long distances between one reliable spring or seep and the next, timing its movements carefully around the coolest hours before dawn and after dusk, resting through the hottest part of the day in whatever shade a narrow canyon or overhanging rock might provide. Every part of its behavior, in other words, has been quietly shaped around the single, unforgiving fact of living somewhere water simply cannot be taken for granted. Not far away, on the neighboring island of Sumatra, camera traps have occasionally caught glimpses of another isolated leopard population, one whose exact taxonomic status researchers still quietly debate, a reminder that even now, in an age of genetic sequencing, the leopard's full family tree is still being carefully worked out, one sample at a time. On the island of Java, in Indonesia, an isolated population evolved in complete separation from the mainland over countless generations, eventually becoming its own fully distinct subspecies entirely. Here, black, melanistic individuals appear far more often than almost anywhere else in the leopard's entire range, so much so that on Java, spotting a black leopard slipping through the forest is nearly as likely as spotting one with the more familiar golden, rosette coat. Researchers studying this unusually high rate of melanism on Java have proposed several possible explanations, none entirely settled yet. Denser forest cover across much of the island may simply favor darker coloring for concealment, in much the same way the black panthers of Southeast Asia's rainforest generally seem to benefit from their own darker coats. It's also possible that, on a relatively small, isolated island with a limited founding population, this particular dark coloring simply became more common over time through pure chance, unrelated to any specific survival advantage at all, a reminder that not every trait a population carries needs to serve some obvious immediate purpose. Sail further still to Sri Lanka, and you'll find a leopard that carries itself just a little differently from its mainland relatives, larger, more confident, moving through the forest without the same instinctive caution most leopards show toward nearby lions or tigers. That's because on this particular island, there are no lions at all, no tigers, no larger competing predator of any kind. The Sri Lankan leopard sits utterly alone at the very top of its own food chain, and over countless generations, that particular kind of solitude at the summit has gradually shaped it into one of the largest, and arguably boldest, of all the recognized subspecies. Meanwhile, across the crowded, densely populated landscapes of India, an entirely different kind of adaptation has quietly taken hold. The Indian leopard remains one of the more numerous subspecies still surviving today, in part because of a remarkable, almost surprising willingness to live closely alongside people, slipping unnoticed along the edges of farmland, through scattered forest patches, even along the outskirts of busy, crowded towns, mostly unseen, moving through the night while ordinary human life continues on, only meters away. Further north still, along the forested valleys and rugged hill country separating the Indian subcontinent from the high Tibetan plateau, another distinct population holds on quietly in landscapes that blend elements of both the warm lowland forest and the cold mountain habitat we visited earlier tonight. And further west again, scattered relic populations persist in isolated forest patches across the Horn of Africa and the southern Arabian coast, each one, in its own way, a small reminder of how widely this single species once moved across a landscape that has since been divided, fragmented, and settled by an ever-expanding human presence. And in the mountains of Iran, and across the wider Caucasus region, a leopard grows larger still than any of the others we've mentioned so far. The Persian leopard, sometimes known instead as the Caucasian leopard, stands as the single largest of all recognized leopard subspecies anywhere in the world, a powerful, solitary presence moving quietly through some of the most rugged, demanding terrain found anywhere on the entire continent. A handful of smaller, less widely known populations round out this same family tree, tucked into isolated pockets researchers are still working to fully classify. Along the fringes of the Sinai Peninsula, a tiny, critically threatened population persists in some of the driest country any leopard anywhere attempts to survive in. In the forested hills separating China from the Korean peninsula, a population closely related to the Amur leopard clings on in similarly reduced numbers, its fate closely tied to the same cross-border conservation efforts protecting its northern relatives. Each of these small, scattered populations represents its own quiet variation on the same enduring theme, a species so adaptable that even its rarest, most isolated branches continue finding some way to persist. One single name, one species in the strictest scientific sense, and yet scattered across 3 whole continents, So many genuinely different versions of the very same quiet story, each one shaped, patiently, generation after generation, by the particular corner of the world it happened to be given to survive within. It's worth remembering, too, that the boundaries between these subspecies were never drawn overnight. They emerged slowly, across thousands of generations, as small populations became separated from one another by rising mountain ranges, by shifting rivers, by deserts that expanded and contracted across long stretches of geological time. A leopard cut off in the mountains of Persia by a spreading desert to its south had no way of knowing it was slowly becoming something subtly new. It simply survived, generation after generation, in the conditions immediately in front of it, and change accumulated quietly in the background, the way it always does, far too slowly for any single lifetime to notice. That patient, accumulating process is still happening now, in every population we've mentioned tonight, whether or not anyone is there to observe it directly. The Sri Lankan leopard, isolated from any mainland leopard population for tens of thousands of years, continues to drift slowly along its own evolutionary path. The Amur leopard, hemmed in now by human development on nearly every side, faces a very different set of pressures than its ancestors ever did, and will very likely look, sound, and behave somewhat differently 1,000 generations from now, assuming it's given the chance to reach that distant point at all. Let's come back down now, from the high mountains and the far side of the ocean, and settle once more into the quiet, familiar company of the leopard itself. There is so much happening beneath that calm, unhurried exterior that never once announces itself. A resting leopard, seen from a short distance in fading light, might look for all the world like nothing more than a loosely coiled shape draped over a branch, entirely at ease, entirely unremarkable. And yet, underneath that stillness, an entire finely tuned system of muscle, bone, and heightened sense continues quietly working, ready to shift, in a heartbeat, from total relaxation into total, focused readiness. A leopard's jaw, though noticeably smaller than a lion's or a tiger's, is driven by exceptionally powerful muscle relative to its size, allowing it to deliver a bite considerably stronger than its modest frame might otherwise suggest to a casual observer. Its tongue, if you could somehow run a gentle finger across it, would feel almost like fine sandpaper against your skin, covered edge to edge in small, backward-facing hooks called papillae, perfectly designed both for stripping the very last shreds of meat cleanly from a bone, and for the slow, careful, unhurried work of grooming its own coat clean afterwards. Even its heartbeat and breathing settle into a different rhythm depending on what it's doing, slow and steady during these long hours of rest, then rising rapidly the instant a stalk begins, oxygen and blood redirected quickly toward the muscles that will need them most in only a few moments' time. It's the same basic biology any runner or swimmer might recognize in their own body, only tuned, in the leopard's case, toward a single explosive burst rather than any sustained effort. Its whole sense of territory runs on a language mostly invisible to us. Beyond the scratch marks and the urine scent we spoke of earlier tonight, a leopard also presses specialized glands located along its cheeks against tree trunks and exposed rock, leaving behind a signature that only another leopard's nose would ever be able to detect and interpret. A single adult male's territory often quietly overlaps the smaller, individual territories of 2 or 3 different females nearby, though it will almost never tolerate another adult male attempting to settle anywhere within that same core space. When courtship does finally happen, it tends to unfold quickly, and with surprising intensity. A male and a female may stay together for only a few days at a time, mating repeatedly, sometimes dozens of times over that short window, before going their separate ways again, each one returning afterward to the solitary life that suits them both best. From that brief, intense pairing, after a gestation period of roughly 3 months, a litter finally arrives, usually 2 or 3 cubs, occasionally more, though larger litters rarely all survive to any meaningful age. Researchers who have observed this brief courtship period closely describe something almost startling in its intensity compared to how the rest of a leopard's life unfolds. 2 animals that would otherwise actively avoid one another for months at a stretch suddenly tolerate close, constant contact, calling to each other frequently, remaining within a few meters at almost all times, before separating again just as abruptly as they came together. It's a short, concentrated exception to an otherwise deeply solitary existence, over almost as quickly as it begins. And survival, for a young cub, is genuinely far from guaranteed. In many parts of the leopard's range, as many as half of all cubs born will not live to see full adulthood, lost instead to lions, to hyenas, or even to rival leopards passing through unfamiliar territory. It's part of the reason a mother will move her den every few days during those earliest, most vulnerable weeks, carrying her cubs gently by the scruff of the neck from one hiding place to the next, always staying one careful, deliberate step ahead of anything that might otherwise find them first. By around 3 months old, a cub finally begins tagging along on real hunts, watching closely, learning slowly, failing often, and trying again without complaint. Somewhere between 12 and 18 months of age, that same cub will finally strike out entirely on its own, and for young males especially, that transition often means a long, genuinely uncertain journey, sometimes covering well over 100 kilometers, searching patiently for some unclaimed corner of land it can finally call its own. Young females, by contrast, often settle far closer to home, sometimes carving out a smaller territory directly bordering or even briefly overlapping their own mother's range before the two eventually settle into a more distant, respectful separation. It's one more quiet difference between how male and female leopards move through the world, one favoring wide, restless exploration, the other favoring a slower, more rooted kind of continuity, generation folding gently into generation across the very same patch of familiar ground. Those that manage to survive all of this may go on to live 12 to 17 years in the wild, considerably longer still under the safety of human care in a sanctuary or reserve. And for every single year of that long life, its senses remain remarkably sharp throughout, hearing precise enough to single out the faint rustle of one small animal shifting quietly in dry grass at real distance, eyes built with a reflective layer positioned behind the retina that catches and effectively doubles whatever faint light happens to exist, which is exactly why a leopard's eyes seem to glow, gold or pale green, whenever caught briefly in a beam of light at night. Unlike the narrow, vertical slit you'd notice in an ordinary house cat's eye, a leopard's pupils remain round, wide, open circles even in near-total darkness, a trait it shares closely with the other great cats, built specifically for gathering in as much of the night's remaining faint light as physically possible. Even the leopard skeleton carries quiet evidence of the life it leads. Its shoulder blades sit positioned slightly differently than a dog's or a hoofed animal's, allowing a greater range of motion through the front legs, useful both for climbing and for the sudden, twisting grapple of subduing struggling prey. Its spine, remarkably flexible along its whole length, allows the leopard to arch, twist, and compress itself into extraordinarily small gaps, curling comfortably into the fork of a tree or the narrow crevice of a rock outcrop in ways that would be entirely impossible for a stiffer, more rigid frame. Rest with all of that for a moment, if you can. A whole hidden architecture of muscle, scent, and reflected starlight, carried quietly beneath a coat that never once gives away just how much is actually happening underneath its surface. It's a strange kind of contradiction to sit with, if you let yourself dwell on it a while longer. So much complexity, so much finely tuned machinery, wrapped inside a creature whose entire strategy for survival depends on appearing to be nothing at all, a shadow, a patch of dappled light, a shape easily mistaken for a branch or a rock. The leopard has spent millions of years perfecting the art of seeming unremarkable, precisely by becoming, underneath that plain appearance, one of the most remarkable hunters this planet has ever produced. Let the leopard's world widen once more now, to include something it has never quite been able to entirely avoid, no matter how carefully it tries: us. Across much of Africa and Asia, the leopard has learned to live astonishingly close to human life, often without us ever fully realizing it's there at all. In India, leopards move quietly through the very edges of some of the country's largest, busiest cities. Even Mumbai, one of the most densely populated urban centers anywhere on Earth, borders a forest where leopards still hunt, den, and raise cubs successfully, slipping along its quiet margins after dark while millions of people sleep soundly only a short distance away, entirely unaware. That kind of closeness is not without its own friction, of course. When livestock goes missing from a village at the forest's edge, the leopard is often responsible, and the resulting tension has, in various places, shaped entire conservation strategies in response. Secure livestock enclosures built specifically to keep leopards safely out overnight. Community education programs designed carefully to lower fear and reduce retaliation. Careful, ongoing monitoring meant to let leopards and people continue sharing the same landscape with noticeably less conflict on either side, season after season. Some of the more successful of these programs have leaned less on new technology and more on very old, familiar solutions: simple thorn fences reinforced correctly, sturdy wooden corrals built with no gaps near ground level, guardian dogs trained to raise an alarm at the first sign of movement near a pen. None of it is complicated. What it requires instead is consistency, a willingness on the part of an entire community to maintain the same careful habits night after night, for years on end, in exchange for a noticeably quieter relationship with the leopards moving through the darkness just beyond the fence line. In parts of southern Africa, a different kind of coexistence has slowly developed around tourism itself. Entire local economies now built carefully around the simple hope of a visitor catching a glimpse of a resting leopard from the safety of an open vehicle. That shift has, in a number of well-documented cases, changed how communities living alongside these animals actually value them, a living leopard worth considerably more, season after season, to a community's income than any single conflict with livestock might otherwise cost. Long before any of that modern effort ever began, though, the leopard already held a genuinely deep place in human imagination. Across many West African traditions, its image has long been tied closely to kingship, to courage, and to a quiet, watchful kind of power, its skin historically worn only by chiefs and rulers as a clear mark of status few others were ever permitted to claim for themselves. In parts of ancient Egypt, leopard skin held real ceremonial weight as well, worn specifically by certain priests during sacred ritual observances. In Chinese art and folklore, its striking image has at times stood in for boldness and bravery more broadly, a creature respected as much for what it visually represented as for anything it actually did in the wild. Even the modern language of African wildlife tourism still quietly carries this legacy forward. The leopard is one of what's often called the Big Five, alongside the lion, the elephant, the buffalo, and the rhinoceros, a term that actually comes not from simple admiration, but from much older hunting tradition, naming the 5 animals once considered the most dangerous and genuinely difficult to track on foot. Of all 5, the leopard has always been considered the hardest to find, precisely because of everything we've already spent this evening slowly discovering about it, one quiet detail at a time. That reputation for elusiveness has, ironically, made a confirmed leopard sighting one of the most prized moments in modern wildlife tourism, often ranked by experienced safari guides as harder to achieve, and more satisfying when it finally happens, than encountering any of the other 4 animals on that same traditional list. Entire guidebooks and travel itineraries have been built around the simple hope of spending just a few minutes in the presence of an animal that would, given the choice, almost certainly have preferred to remain unnoticed entirely. Most leopards keep mainly to the hours around dusk, dawn, and full darkness, though in quieter places, free of human disturbance or nearby competing predators, they'll happily move about by daylight too, without any particular concern. Researchers using hidden camera traps scattered through the bush have found something quietly remarkable in all of this. Leopards appear to actively adjust their own daily rhythm depending on exactly who else shares their particular stretch of territory, shifting toward more strictly nocturnal habits specifically in places where lions or hyenas remain active, simply in order to avoid crossing paths with them at all, wherever possible. This adjustment isn't fixed or permanent either. The very same individual leopard has been observed shifting its own activity pattern across different seasons, becoming noticeably bolder about daytime movement during periods when competing predators happen to be concentrated elsewhere, following migrating herds perhaps, only to retreat back into stricter nocturnal habits again once those same competitors return to the area. It's a level of behavioral flexibility that continues to surprise researchers each time a new long-term study confirms it. That same deep patience shows up clearly in how a leopard manages its food supply too. Rather than relying on a single kill dragged into a single tree, a leopard will sometimes cache more than one carcass at once, tucked carefully into separate trees scattered across its territory, a kind of quiet insurance policy set carefully against a hungrier, leaner night still to come. And that territory itself can vary enormously depending on how rich or how sparse the surrounding land happens to be, anywhere from just 10 square kilometers in especially prairie-rich country, to well over 100 square kilometers in places where food proves harder to come by. Female leopards, interestingly, often settle into territories that overlap significantly with the range their own mother once held before them, quietly inheriting a familiar patch of forest or grassland, generation after generation, almost without exception. Male leopards, by contrast, tend to disperse considerably further from where they were born, a pattern that shows up across many solitary predators and seems to help prevent closely related animals from repeatedly interbreeding within the same small area. It means a young male's long, uncertain journey away from his mother's territory serves a purpose far larger than his own individual survival, quietly maintaining a healthier, more genetically diverse population across the wider landscape, one dispersing male at a time, across generation after generation. It's that same distinctive pattern we began this whole story with tonight, the rosettes themselves, that now lets researchers follow individual leopards for years at a stretch without ever needing to trap or physically tag a single one. A leopard photographed by a hidden camera trap tonight can be recognized again with confidence, months or even years later, purely by the unique arrangement of spots across its shoulder or flank, a name effectively written across its own body since the very day it was first born. So much of a leopard's entire life is spent quietly trying not to be seen at all. And yet, in the end, it's precisely that unrepeatable coat, the very thing built so carefully for hiding, that finally lets us begin, slowly and patiently, to actually know it. There's a gentle irony worth sitting within that thought for a moment. An animal that has spent millions of years perfecting the art of disappearing has, almost by accident, given us the one tool capable of finally following its story closely, across years, across generations, without ever needing to disturb the quiet, private life it has always preferred to lead. Let the present moment fall gently away for a while now, and let's drift instead into something much older than any single leopard we've followed tonight, older even than any of the forests or mountain ranges we've walked quietly through so far. Older, in fact, than the very shape of the continents themselves as we know them today, back when the pieces of our modern maps still fit together differently, and the slow, patient drift of tectonic plates had years and years still ahead of it before the world would look anything like it does now. The leopard's wider family, the great cats known collectively as Panthera, is thought to have first emerged somewhere between 2 and nearly 4 million years ago, based on what fossil evidence and modern genetic studies can carefully tell us. And of all the cats within that ancient family, lions, tigers, jaguars, snow leopards, genetic evidence increasingly suggests something quietly remarkable. The leopard's own particular lineage may well be the oldest branch of them all, splitting away from its relatives long before any of the others we've spoken about tonight had fully taken their present shape. Long before the modern boundaries of our continents were ever fixed firmly in place, back when land bridges still connected what are now entirely separate landmasses, the ancestors of today's great cats moved freely across enormous distances, carrying this same basic pattern of muscle, stealth, and shadow into nearly every corner of the world they could physically reach. A journey that, for any single individual animal, would have unfolded across only one short lifetime, following prey herds gradually further along a coastline or up a river valley, with no sense at all of the enormous, continent-spanning migration its own descendants were slowly completing, one modest generation at a time. Fossils belonging to ancient leopards have turned up in places as far removed from Africa as England and Germany, a quiet, almost startling reminder that the leopard once wandered freely through parts of Europe where none exist anywhere in the wild today. There's another cat, though, genuinely worth pausing on here for a while, one so often mentioned in the very same breath as the leopard that the two get tangled together in most people's minds almost automatically, despite having remarkably little in common once you look closely beneath the surface. It's a confusion that shows up constantly in casual conversation, in old photographs mislabeled online, even occasionally in early wildlife documentaries narrated before the distinction was as widely understood as it is today. Two golden, spotted cats, both associated loosely with the same open grasslands of Africa, easy enough to blur together at a quick glance or from a grainy photograph taken at a distance. And yet, spend even a few minutes looking closely at both animals side by side, and the differences begin to multiply rapidly, in coat, in build, in behavior, in the entire evolutionary path each one traveled to arrive at where it stands today. The cheetah. Where the leopard belongs firmly to the same wider family as lions and tigers, the cheetah sits entirely apart, in its own separate genus altogether, built from the ground up for a completely different way of surviving. Look closely and the coat itself gives the difference away almost immediately. A cheetah's markings are simple, solid black spots, evenly scattered across its body, without the layered, clustered rosettes that make up a leopard's own distinctive pattern. And running down from the inner corner of each eye to the edge of its mouth, a cheetah carries dark, tear-like lines, thought by researchers to function almost like a built-in pair of sunglasses, cutting down harsh glare during a high-speed hunt beneath a blazing midday sun. Everything else about the cheetah's body only confirms that same fundamental difference further. Its claws, unlike the leopard's own, don't fully retract, functioning instead almost like the cleats fixed to the bottom of a running shoe, gripping firmly into the earth for maximum traction. Its tail is long, notably flattened, almost rudder-like in shape, whipping quickly from side to side to hold balance through sudden, sharp turns at speeds that can briefly touch nearly 100 kilometers an hour, close to double what even the fastest leopard could ever hope to manage in its own short, explosive bursts of speed. But that same intense specialization comes at a real cost the leopard never has to pay in return. A cheetah's frame, built almost entirely around raw speed alone, simply isn't strong enough to haul a hard-won kill up into the safety of a tree the way a leopard manages so effortlessly, night after night. Where the leopard chooses power, patience, and quiet, hidden strength as its guiding principle, the cheetah has traded nearly all of that away in exchange for pure, uninterrupted speed across open ground. That trade-off shows up again the moment a cheetah's hunt actually succeeds. Having spent everything on the chase itself, a cheetah is often left exhausted immediately after a kill, its body temperature spiking dangerously from the effort, forcing it to pause and recover before it can even begin eating. In that vulnerable window, a cheetah frequently loses its hard-earned meal entirely, to hyenas, to lions, occasionally even to a leopard passing through at exactly the wrong moment. The leopard, having invested in a slower, more careful approach from the very start, rarely finds itself in quite so precarious a position once the hunt concludes. Even their spotted coats, so strikingly similar at a passing glance from a distance, tell two genuinely different evolutionary stories underneath. Tight, layered rosettes, perfectly suited to dappled light beneath scattered trees and thick brush. Against simple, solid spots, suited instead to wide open, sun-drenched grassland with nowhere at all left to properly hide. Behaviorally, the two animals diverge just as sharply as their bodies do. A cheetah typically hunts during the cooler daylight hours, relying on keen eyesight across open distances to spot prey long before closing in. A leopard, as we've spent so much of tonight discovering, prefers the concealment of dusk, dawn, and full darkness instead, relying on stealth and ambush rather than any sustained pursuit across open ground. Two entirely different hunting philosophies, each one perfectly suited to the particular body carrying it out, each one proven successful across countless generations in its own right. There is a deeper irony hidden in all of this too, one worth sitting with for a moment. Genetic studies suggest the modern cheetah passed through an extraordinarily narrow bottleneck at some point in its relatively recent past, a population crash so severe that every cheetah alive today is remarkably similar to every other, genetically speaking, descended from a small handful of survivors. The leopard, by contrast, carries far greater genetic diversity across its range, spread out gradually across so many different subspecies and so many different corners of the world, a living record of just how long and how widely this particular lineage has managed to persist. Rest here a while longer, and simply consider how many millions of years, how many entirely separate paths through deep time, ultimately led to these two remarkable cats standing so close together in our shared imagination today, and yet remain so genuinely far apart in almost everything that actually makes them who they are. Let's turn our attention now to something a little less immediately visible, the quiet, patient role the leopard plays within the wider fabric of every place it calls home. In many ecosystems, the leopard sits at or very near the very top of the food chain, and that particular position carries weight far beyond its own simple hunting habits. By keeping populations of antelope, monkeys, and other grazing or foraging animals carefully in check, the leopard helps prevent any single species from ever overwhelming the surrounding landscape, indirectly protecting the balance of plants and smaller creatures further down the chain, a ripple effect ecologists sometimes describe as a trophic cascade, where the mere presence of one quiet, patient predator ends up shaping an entire ecosystem's long-term health. In places where lions or tigers have vanished from a landscape entirely, often because of sustained human pressure over many decades, the leopard tends to quietly step into that newly emptied role, adjusting both its prey choices and its own general caution, almost as if filling in a gap left carefully behind by something larger. It's a flexibility we've circled back to again and again throughout tonight, and it shows up clearly here too, now at the level of an entire ecosystem rather than a single isolated hunt. Conservationists sometimes describe this quality using the term umbrella species, meaning that protecting enough suitable habitat to sustain a healthy leopard population tends, almost automatically, to protect a great many other, less visible species sharing that same landscape underneath it. A forest large enough and intact enough to support a stable leopard territory is, by simple necessity, also large enough to support the antelope, the smaller cats, the birds, and the plant life that entire food web quietly depends on. In this sense, protecting one patient, solitary predator ends up protecting a great deal more of the world around it than its own single life would ever suggest on its own. That same underlying adaptability extends further into a surprisingly wide and varied diet. Leopards are accomplished hunters of primates too, using patience and their natural gift for climbing to slipping close beside sleeping baboons or monkeys before the group ever fully senses the danger nearby. In places where their territory brushes right up against human settlements, a leopard may occasionally take a domestic dog left near the edge of a village overnight, one of the very few large predators genuinely bold enough to slip that close to people in search of an easy, convenient meal. And when the right opportunity happens to arise, a leopard isn't above scavenging a carcass another predator has already brought down first, rather than always insisting on a fresh hunt of its own, practical and efficient above almost everything else, never wasteful with the energy available to it. This same opportunistic streak occasionally leads a leopard toward genuinely unusual prey choices, depending entirely on what a particular landscape happens to offer. Along certain coastlines, leopards have been documented picking through the remains of stranded fish and other marine life left behind by receding tides. In agricultural areas, they've adapted to taking advantage of rodent populations drawn to stored grain, effectively turning a byproduct of human farming into a reliable, if unintentional, food source. Very few large predators anywhere show quite this much willingness to reconsider what counts as an acceptable meal, depending simply on where they happen to find themselves. Their voice, it turns out, carries considerably more range than the single rasping call we mentioned earlier tonight. Between a mother and her cubs especially, softer sounds tend to take over entirely: low grunts, sharp hisses when startled unexpectedly, growls used as clear warning, and a gentle chuffing sound, almost like a purr, used specifically to reassure cubs waiting quietly and patiently in their den. Watch cubs at play sometime, tumbling playfully over one another or pouncing eagerly on a fallen leaf drifting past, and you're really watching careful rehearsal in progress, every mock stalk and pounce quietly laying down the exact coordination they'll come to rely on later, once a genuine hunt finally depends on it. Even those same whiskers we noticed back at the very start of the night extend considerably further than just the muzzle alone. Fine, sensitive hairs also grow above each eye and along the back of the forelegs, extending a leopard's overall sense of the space immediately around its body in nearly every direction at once, a kind of invisible, constantly updating map of the surrounding dark, refreshed with every small movement it makes. And every so often, a leopard's hidden strength reveals itself in a way that still genuinely surprises even researchers who've spent years quietly studying them. Rare, carefully documented cases exist of a single leopard successfully bringing down prey more than double its own body weight, including, in a handful of extraordinary instances, young giraffes far larger than anything you'd ordinarily expect a cat of this size to attempt taking on entirely alone. Much of what we now understand about all of this, the hunting patterns, the individual personalities, the noticeable boldness of one particular leopard set against the caution of another nearby, has only really come into sharper focus over the last 2 decades or so, as hidden camera traps and lightweight tracking collars have quietly opened up a window into a life that, for most of recorded human history, unfolded almost entirely unseen, hidden just beyond the edge of what we were ever able to observe directly. This same quiet ecological role extends into places you might not immediately expect. Along certain river systems, leopards help regulate populations of smaller predators, foxes, jackals, and similar mid-sized hunters, simply by being a larger, more dangerous presence competing for the same space. Remove the leopard from that equation entirely, as has happened across parts of its former range, and those smaller predators often increase rapidly in number, in turn placing far heavier pressure on the rodents, birds, and other small creatures they depend on. A single, patient hunter moving quietly through the night, in other words, ends up shaping far more of the landscape around it than its solitary, unassuming presence would ever suggest. We are, in many genuine ways, still only beginning to know this remarkable animal fully, even after everything we've walked through together so patiently tonight. Every new study seems to reveal some small detail that quietly reshapes what came before it. A hunting technique no one had documented, a territory larger or smaller than assumed, a relationship between mother and cub more nuanced than the simple picture field guides once offered. It's a humbling thought, in its own gentle way, that an animal capable of moving so close to human settlements for so long could still hold this many details in reserve, waiting patiently to be noticed. There's one more kind of leopard story worth telling before we let this long night finally finish turning toward morning, not about the animal itself this time, but about the quiet, patient people who have spent entire careers simply watching it, year after year, without ever growing tired of the task. Think, for a moment, about what that kind of long-term watching actually asks of a person. Years spent rising before dawn, driving slowly along the same familiar tracks, sitting for long stretches in complete silence, often coming away with nothing more to show for an entire morning than a single distant glimpse of a tail disappearing into thick brush. It is not glamorous work, most of the time. It rewards exactly the same quality the leopard itself seems to embody so completely. An almost unreasonable amount of patience, held steady across seasons, across years, without any guarantee of what it might eventually reveal. In parts of South Africa, certain individual leopards have become known personally, followed and carefully documented by researchers and field guides for so many consecutive years that their entire lives have been recorded almost from birth all the way through to old age. One such leopardess, studied closely for nearly 2 decades in a private reserve called Londolozi, became one of the most thoroughly observed wild leopards in recorded history, her territory, her cubs, even her own particular hunting quirks recorded faithfully across generation after generation of her descendants who came after her. Through patient stories exactly like hers, so much of what we've shared together throughout tonight was first learned, slowly and carefully, one quiet, unhurried observation at a time. That same patience has paid off in other places too, in ways that matter enormously. Remember the Amur leopard we spoke of earlier, that pale, thick-coated cat clinging tightly to survival along the frozen border shared between Russia and China. From a devastating low point of perhaps only 30 individuals surviving in the wild, decades of careful, coordinated cross-border conservation work, newly protected reserves, and meaningfully reduced poaching have allowed that fragile population to slowly climb back toward triple digits, still desperately fragile by any measure, but no longer standing quite so close to the very edge of disappearing entirely. Similar quiet, painstaking efforts are now underway for the Arabian leopard too, with careful breeding programs working patiently to give that smallest, driest adapted subspecies a genuine chance to expand once again across the mountains it very nearly vanished from completely, within living memory. None of that slow recovery happens by accident. It comes instead from an enormous, largely invisible amount of ordinary human patience, rangers walking the same remote patrol routes week after week, scientists sitting for entire seasons beside a single den site, translators and local community liaisons building trust, slowly, between conservation projects and the villagers who share a border with these animals every single day. For every leopard whose story we can actually tell tonight, there are dozens of quiet people whose own daily work made that story possible to know at all, people who will likely never see their names attached to any of it, and who, in their own way, seem to have absorbed a little of the leopard's own patience simply by spending so long in its company. Technology has become an unlikely, almost surprising partner in all of this ongoing work. The very same rosette pattern that once made a leopard nearly impossible to track without physically capturing it can now be recognized automatically, with computer software carefully comparing camera trap photographs against enormous, growing databases, identifying individual leopards purely from the unique arrangement of pattern across their shoulder or flank, with no trap, no tag, no direct contact required at all anymore. Think for a moment about what that quietly means. A single motion-triggered camera, strapped to a tree along some remote game trail, capturing one brief flash of a passing shape in the middle of the night, has become enough, on its own, to add another data point to a story that might otherwise have gone entirely unrecorded. Multiply that single camera by hundreds, scattered patiently across an entire reserve or national park, left running for months or years at a stretch, and a picture slowly begins to emerge, not of leopards in general, but of this leopard, and that one, each with its own territory, its own habits, its own small, quiet history unfolding one photograph at a time. Researchers now speak of some individuals almost the way you might speak of an old, familiar neighbor, recognized instantly the moment a new image comes in, simply by the particular pattern across one shoulder. Radio collars, fitted carefully and briefly during a single safe capture, have added another layer entirely, tracing the exact path a leopard walks across weeks and months, revealing just how far a single animal might range in search of food, of water, of a mate, or simply of solitude, when the pressure from a rival becomes too much to bear. Some of these tracked journeys have surprised even veteran researchers, tracing a single leopard's movement across distances few would have guessed possible for an animal so committed, in every other way, to staying quietly out of sight. And every so often, the leopard still finds some new way to surprise even those researchers who have devoted an entire lifetime to studying it closely. Individuals have occasionally been recorded reaching weights well beyond what's typically expected for the species, particularly in parts of southern Africa where prey remains genuinely abundant and competition from nearby lions stays comparatively limited, growing steadily into some of the largest, most powerful leopards ever formally documented. Such individuals tend to become local legends in their own right, known by name among rangers and researchers, their territories mapped in careful detail across years of patient observation, their eventual passing, from old age or illness, marked with a kind of quiet, genuine grief among the people who had come to know them. It's a strange thing, in some ways, to feel real affection for an animal that has spent its entire life deliberately avoiding your attention, and yet that affection seems to arise again and again, wherever people have taken the time to watch closely enough, for long enough. Elsewhere, researchers patiently piecing together decades of scattered sightings from dozens of separate field sites have slowly confirmed just how far this one remarkably adaptable species is willing to go in order to make a life for itself, from freezing mountain passes to the crowded, unnoticed edges of major cities, from open, sun-scorched desert to the dense, dripping heart of the rainforest itself. Nearly everything we've walked carefully through together tonight, in fact, from that very first golden hour of dusk all the way to this exact moment, has only ever been pieced together by people willing to sit quietly, for years at a stretch, simply watching, in much the same patient, unhurried way the leopard itself moves through the world it calls home. That's worth remembering the next time a documentary or a photograph offers up some small, remarkable detail about a wild leopard's life, a favorite resting tree, an unusual kill, a mother teaching her cub some particular skill. Behind that single captured moment usually sits an enormous, unseen scaffolding of ordinary human patience, hundreds of quiet mornings that revealed nothing at all, absorbed without complaint, simply so that the one morning that did reveal something could eventually be recognized for what it was. Let your breathing settle a little further now, slow and even, as we begin, gently, to bring this long night to its close. And now, very gently, let's return to exactly where we began. That same wide savanna. That same low, familiar acacia tree. Only now, the long night is finally loosening its hold on the sky, and somewhere far along the eastern horizon, the faintest edge of soft gray light has just begun to gently soften the darkness above. The leopard we first met at dusk has made its way back, unhurried as ever, to a favorite branch a little higher up in the tree, the very same one, perhaps, it has rested in on 100 quiet mornings before this one. It settles now, paws tucked neatly beneath its chest, coat merging almost perfectly with the dappled shade of the first pale light beginning to filter softly down through the surrounding leaves. Somewhere behind it, hidden away in cover we'll never actually see for ourselves, another leopard's cubs are stirring gently inside their den, still blind, still small enough to fit comfortably into two cupped hands, with no idea yet of mountains, or oceans, or any part of the wide, wonderfully varied world that carries their family's shared name. For now, their entire world remains only warmth, and the steady, comforting sound of their mother's breathing close beside them. We've traveled a genuinely long way together tonight. Across open savanna and dry desert, up into thin, freezing mountain air, down into a warm, dripping forest canopy, across an entire ocean and quietly back again. We've met cats that share this creature's name, and cats that only ever share its shadow. We've watched cubs open their eyes for the very first time, and followed one solitary, patient hunter through the better part of an entire long night, from the first golden hour of dusk to this final, softening edge of dawn. Somewhere out across that same wide savanna, other lives are only now beginning to stir as the light strengthens. A francolin calls from somewhere low in the grass. A troop of distant baboons begins to grumble awake in the branches of a fig tree, entirely unaware of how close a hunter rested the night before. The ordinary business of an ordinary morning is quietly resuming, exactly as it has for longer than anyone could reasonably count, indifferent to how much of the night's hidden drama ever really took place at all. Somewhere far to the north, in mountains still wrapped in darkness for a few hours longer, a snow leopard is likely settling into its own rest after a long night moving across frozen ridgelines. Somewhere in a warm, dripping forest, a clouded leopard is descending slowly from wherever it spent the daylight hours, beginning its own night just as ours here comes to a close. And somewhere across an entire ocean, in a river system still hours behind us in time, a jaguar may only now be waking, unaware that its distant, spotted relative has already watched an entire night turn quietly into morning. And high above us, if you were to look now, the very last stars are fading gently from view, one by one, the way they always do just before a new day fully arrives. The leopard, curled comfortably in its familiar branch, has already closed its eyes. Whatever the coming day holds, heat, stillness, the low murmur of a warming breeze through dry grass, it will meet it exactly the way it has met every day before, without hurry, without complaint, simply present, exactly where it is. Thank you for spending this time here, in the quiet company of this remarkable animal. Whatever brought you to this particular story tonight, may the same patient, unhurried quality we've spent over 2 hours describing find its way gently into your own rest now, too. Sleep well. And should you find yourself awake again before true morning, know that somewhere, on some quiet ridge or riverbank or branch, this same patient watcher is likely still out there too, moving unhurried through its own long night, exactly as it always has. And through absolutely all of it, the leopard has done exactly what it has always done, in every one of the many different forms it takes across this earth. Moved quietly, asked for very little in return, simply endured, one still, patient, unhurried moment at a time, night after night, generation after generation. Perhaps that's the quiet thread running underneath everything we've shared tonight, more than any single fact or figure. Not the top speed, or the bite force, or the exact number of rosettes scattered across one shoulder, but simply this: an animal that has, across millions of years in every corner of this planet it's willing to call home, chosen patience over haste, and solitude over spectacle, again and again, and has thrived precisely because of that choice, rather than in spite of it. There may be something worth carrying with us from that, long after this particular night has ended and the ordinary business of morning will resume. The sky continues to lighten now, slowly, gently, the way it always eventually does, no matter how long or how dark the night before it happened to be. There's nothing more you need to do right now. No more distance left to travel tonight. Just rest here a while longer, in this same soft, spotted quiet that has carried us all the way through, and let the morning come, gently, in its own unhurried time.